Canada, 1849. The Nzawa family lived peacefully near the Wennacock River on BC's coast. They were members of the Oregano people and enjoyed the riches of one of the largest salmon runs in the province. But in year 1850, everything changed. With the discovery of gold, many more Europeans came into Canada and the fur trade economy was replaced by forestry, mining, and fishing. This had huge influence on the lives of First Nations people. Salmon fish was one of the major food sources, and the whole family worked together to provide it for the home and to work it with Euro-Canadians. However, through the food fishing law, they were not allowed to sell the salmon fish anymore. The families felt that they lost the control over their own land and resources. Instead, the control fell into the hands of the capitalist industries, who dictated all terms of employment. They set the price for the fish and the working conditions, and for 30 years they were an almost invincible force. For the Hanzawa family, that meant that they had to go to the canneries in the summer and work for those canning industries. The whole family went and lived in small cabins near the water. The father fished for the salmon on boats with the other men, and the mother worked with the other women in the canneries. The living and working conditions were cramped and unhealthy. Furthermore, they often faced discrimination. The First Nations people, but also the Euro-Canadians workers, hoped for a better tomorrow. However, it didn't seem to get better. Therefore, Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people made their allies and formed trade unions, which fought for the workers' right in the fishing industry. In year 1900, the Fraser River strike was an important turning point. For the first time, the workers had a strong voice and they demanded that both sides, workers and industry, should work together to reach their goal. Furthermore, it established that the cannery owners had to share some of the profits with the workers. But the Aboriginal people and the Euro-Canadians workers were in conflict because the trade union never recognized First Nations' demands for their rights and titles. As a result, the Native Brotherhood was created in 1931 to work for the recognition of First Nations rights, with success. In year 1943, the first contract with the canning companies was signed. Although some chiefs were able to break free from the companies, most First Nations fishers were not. The reason was that they were not permitted to borrow money from the bank, which kept them tied to the companies. The same fate had First Nations workers to face in agriculture. The Aboriginal people were displaced from the territories by the capitalist interests of the industries. The difference between the Aboriginal and European economies made it hard for the First Nations people to be a part of farming economy. The subsistence farming was the most common way used by First Nations people. They moved through the land, hunting and gathered the foods to provide for their families. The Europeans used the commercial farming, which was more labor-intensive. They lived and worked only on one spot, and used just a limited number of crops and livestock. Land and water were the basic requirements for owning a farm. However, through certain laws, the First Nations people couldn't own these two resources. The British could come into the province and squat 160 to 320 acres of land as long as they improved the land, which meant that they had to clean and convert the land. First Nations people were not able to do that because they had to live in special reserves and couldn't increase their land base. In addition, they had no access to water because they weren't allowed to have a water license. Because of that, it was better for First Nations people to work as labor for owners of large farms, where they could earn more money. To conclude, the change of the economy only had negative effects on the lives of First Nations people. In our opinion, it is not fair that the capitalist industry took over the land and resources of First Nations people without respecting their traditions and ownership. I hope you enjoyed the presentations. Thank you for listening.